He came in undercover to see how customers were being treated, but what he overheard confirmed his biggest fears. He parked his old Ford Ranger in front of the dealership, the engine rattling in protest as he twisted the key. It was a dusty blue pickup, paint flaking on the sides, driver's seat patched with duct tape. Nobody glanced twice when he stepped out, which was exactly how he wanted it. Faded jeans, a canvas jacket, work boots still crusted in dried red dirt. He could have been any guy who just finished a roofing job or welding shift. No one imagined that less than 12 hours earlier, he'd been in a boardroom signing payroll checks for this very establishment. The dealership sat on the outskirts of Amarillo, Texas, not too large, nothing flashy, a Chevy and GMC combo perched near a busy highway. He had bought it 5 years back, rebranded the place, remodeled the service center, hired young people at good wages. But over the past 2 months, his assistant Marcy had brought him 3 private complaints, each from a black or Hispanic customer, suggesting a pattern, feeling talked down to or flat out ignored. He hoped it was a misunderstanding, a one-time lapse. Deep down, though, he suspected otherwise. So here he was, strolling into his own dealership, nobody aware the man who signed their paychecks had just stepped through the front doors. "Need help with something?" a voice called, dry and apathetic. He turned to see a salesman in his mid-30s, receding hairline, clipboard under one arm, regarding him without even a pretense of a smile. "Yeah," the owner said, playing it casual. "Looking to buy a truck." The salesman gave a shrug. "New or used?" "Used." Another careless shrug. "They're over there." A pointed finger toward a row of dust-laden trucks roasting in the midday sun. No handshake, no offer of coffee, no introduction. The owner nodded, more to himself than to the salesman, and walked off in that direction. Nearby, a young couple, white, around their early 30s, wearing golf shirts, emerged from a black SUV. Instantly, a second salesman, younger, hair carefully gelled, bright white grin, jogged over to them. "Welcome, folks," that younger salesman called, cheerful. "Can I get y'all coffee or water while we have a look? AC inside is working great too, if you want to cool off." The owner caught every word. He paused at a silver Sierra 1500, clean, recent model, slight dent on the passenger door. The sticker read $24,300. He leaned down to check the tires. A moment later, the first salesman drifted back over, hands stuffed in his pockets. "That one's got a lot of miles," he muttered. "But it runs okay." "How many miles?" the owner asked. "Little over 110K. "Maintenance record?" The salesman rubbed his chin like the question was an annoyance. "Probably have it on file somewhere." "Want me to ask someone?" The owner straightened, glancing around. Inside, the cheerful salesman was already cracking jokes with that couple, who hadn't even looked at a single vehicle yet. The owner turned back. "Yeah, I'd like the maintenance history. And maybe test drive it." A resigned sigh. "Sure. I'll grab the keys." As the man headed off, the owner pulled out his phone, opening a notes app. Silver Sierra 1500. Salesman doesn't know mileage or records. 0 engagement. He wasn't here to be difficult, just to see the truth. Catching his own reflection in the truck's window, he noted a man nearing 50, flecks of gray in his beard, calloused hands from the years before the corporate world. His eyes, though, remained sharp, and he remembered the sting of being sized up by folks who assumed he had nothing in his wallet or his brain. A breeze whisked across the lot, carrying the faint sound of laughter from inside. What followed, though, would cut deeper than he'd anticipated. The salesman returned about 5 minutes later, keys dangling off one finger, a smudged printout in his other hand. "Here's the record, and here's the keys," he said in a tone reminiscent of a DMV clerk who'd worked a double shift. "Just bring it back in 20. The owner glanced at the half-finished maintenance log, a couple of oil changes, 1 tire rotation, battery replaced. Sparse data, the dates didn't line up with the odometer reading. He folded the sheet, slipped it into his jacket pocket. "Thanks. Mind if I ask a few questions before I take it out?" The salesman's posture radiated impatience. "Like what? Accident history? Number of owners? You mentioned it runs all right, does that mean it has issues?" Another breath, more frustration. "It's been in a fender bender. Nothing big. Owner count? Maybe 2 or 3, don't quote me. And no problems. I said it runs, didn't I?" The owner forced a polite smile. "You did. Just figured I'd confirm, seeing as I'd be the one buying it." A shrug. The salesman didn't attempt to hide his annoyance. Right before he wandered off, the owner tossed out a final question: "If I were wearing a polo shirt and waving a lease contract, would you be talking to me any different?" The salesman froze a split second, unsure how to respond. But instead of answering, he pivoted and vanished back inside. The owner let him go without a word, standing alone, keys in hand, absorbing the quiet of the lot. Heat shimmered over the asphalt. Through the windows, he glimpsed the animated gestures and wide smiles offered to preferred customers. Everything he'd suspected was now playing out in real time. He climbed into the Sierra, turned the ignition. The seat creaked, the AC sputtered warm air before sputtering to lukewarm at best. Circling the block gave him time to think. He didn't want to accept that his dealership had drifted into this. But everything pointed to a pattern, the same one those complaint letters described. Bias wasn't a glitch in the system. It was the system. Returning to the showroom, he parked in the same space. Inside, the lights gleamed off polished tile, the couple from before sipping bottled water at a desk, the younger salesman chatting them up. Meanwhile, the manager typed at a computer, ignoring him as he stepped through the glass doors. He was effectively invisible. At the receptionist's desk, he said, "I just test drove the Silver Sierra with around 110k miles. I'd like to move forward on it." She barely glanced up. "Which one?" He repeated the details. She typed something, then gave him a blank look. "I'll find someone." No smile, no, thanks for coming in, just a bored nod. Moments later, the disinterested salesman ambled back with his clipboard. "You ready to talk numbers?" "Let's do it." They moved to a dingy corner desk. The owner settled into a squeaky chair while the salesman tapped his keyboard with a mix of lethargy and frustration. "You got financing, or paying cash?" "Cash." A quick double take. "Really?" "Yeah." "Problem?" He shrugged. "Just that most folks don't." "I'm not most folks." They bantered about the price. The salesman tried hawking add-ons, extended warranties, undercoating, nonsense the owner politely declined. He'd played this game many times before. Across the room, the older man spotted something that made his stomach knot, a young black man, maybe early 20s, wearing jeans and a worn-out hoodie, standing hesitantly near the entrance, folder in hand. Nobody acknowledged him. After a few beats of being unnoticed, that kid shuffled around and quietly left. No greeting, no pitch, nothing. The owner clenched his jaw, but kept quiet, for the moment. "Sign here if everything looks good," the salesman said, sliding over the documents. The ballpoint was halfway to the paper when a sharp voice interrupted. "Why is he getting help when I've been waiting 10 minutes? The voice belonged to a different customer entirely, someone apparently fed up with waiting. But that single question triggered everything that came next. Chase Turner didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He was the man wearing dusty boots and a worn jacket, but in truth, he was the CEO who owned this place. Now he stood, calm and composed, letting the truth settle like dust in the hot Texas air. He turned to the white man who'd started complaining. "You want fairness?" Chase asked. "Then ask yourself how fair it is to size me up on my clothes or my ride." The man muttered something incoherent, but Chase didn't flinch. He wasn't just doing this for himself. He was doing it for that young man who'd just walked out unseen, for every single mother who'd come here hoping for a decent trade-in but got condescension, for all those who had never been treated with basic respect. Enough was enough. The salesman, still gripping the contract, suddenly looked as though he'd aged 10 years in half an hour. "I've been patient," Chase said, voice steady. "I believe that if I hired good people, paid them well, gave them room to grow, they'd treat folks right. But what I saw today, that's not just poor service. It's a failure." Some of the staff had gathered behind computers, half hiding, half eavesdropping. The younger salesman who'd bent over backward for that suburban couple peeked around a corner, then retreated. Chase's tone stayed calm, not angry, just disappointed. "You think I didn't notice how quickly you rolled out the welcome mat for them? Bottled water, big smiles. Meanwhile, I got a half-hearted grunt and a finger wave at the used lot. I've worked too hard to see this place become a gatekeeper." The older salesman attempted a response. "Mr. Turner, I didn't mean." "That's the issue," Chase interrupted. "You didn't mean to, but you still did." Silence. A hush that weighed heavier than any marketing slogan or brand tagline. Chase Turner shifted his gaze to the finance manager, who'd wandered up behind the receptionist. "How long have you been here?" The man straightened. 3 years, sir." "And how many times have you seen this kind of thing happen?" The manager dropped his stare to the floor, uncomfortable. "That's what I thought," Chase said quietly. Then he turned back to the desk. He picked up the pen, but instead of signing, he drew a firm slash through the contract. "I'm not buying a single thing today," he declared, loud enough for all to hear. The salesman sputtered, "But it's a solid truck, we're halfway." "You didn't sell me that truck," Chase replied coolly. "I was sold when I walked in. You just gave me a reason not to close." A pause, then he added, "And as of right now, you're done." The salesman's eyes went wide. "Wait, what? You're fired, effective immediately." The finance manager took a tentative step forward. "Should I call HR?" Chase shook his head. "No need. I'll handle it personally." The salesman just stood there, stunned. Chase didn't ask him to go. He didn't have to. The quiet from everyone else was a chorus of finality. He turned to the rest of the employees, glancing at them from corners and desks. "If you think your job's to just move trucks, you're in the wrong business. Our job is to serve people, all people. The truck is our product, trust is the sale." He paused, letting that settle, then said softly, as if talking to himself, "I built this place so folks wouldn't feel they had to prove themselves just to be taken seriously. If I have to tear it down to fix it, I will." He pivoted to head out. He wasn't storming off, he moved with the calmness of a man who understood exactly who he was. But before he made it far, the customer who'd been grumbling about waiting piped up again. "You think you're teaching a lesson? That's fine, but you can't just fire somebody because your feelings got bruised." Chase stopped. He closed his eyes momentarily, fighting back the surge of frustration. Then he turned, face unreadable, voice low and certain. "I didn't fire him because my feelings got hurt. I fired him because he treated people without basic respect." "That's not the same thing." The man scoffed, arms crossed. "You're overreacting. He didn't roll out any red carpet for you, big whoop. Doesn't make it racism. Maybe he was having a rough day." Chase took a measured step forward. "I wish it was just a bad day," he said, voice calm but resonant. "I wish it was some one-off mistake. But I've got emails from customers who look like me describing these exact situations I just lived through. Then I saw it with my own eyes, that kid walked in earlier, no one spoke to him at all. Not once, not twice, but consistently." He gestured around. "That's not one bad day. That's a culture. A hush gripped the entire showroom. The few remaining customers had stopped browsing. Some stared with curiosity, others radiated guilt. The man half shrugged. "Whatever, you're just pulling the race card to act special." The words hit like a slap. Chase stepped closer, voice unwavering. "You don't know what it's like to walk into a place and watch the mood shift the moment people see you. You don't know what it's like to be asked about your job before anyone shakes your hand. You don't know how it feels to have someone spell out a contract like you can't read." He shook his head. "And maybe you'll never know. But don't you stand here pretending it doesn't happen, not when we've all just watched it happen." The man stayed silent. Chase scanned the employees again. Now, he wasn't speaking to just one person, he was speaking to all of them. "I didn't have much growing up," he said quietly. "My mom cleaned motels. My dad poured concrete until his back gave out. They didn't have connections or a safety net, just pride. They taught me not to make excuses. And I never did, even when people yelled slurs or locked their car doors when I walked by, or stared at me shopping like I might rob the place." His voice cracked with truth. "I still made it. I built something. And I made damn sure to treat people better than how I was treated. That's what matters here, how we treat folks, how we greet them, how we make them feel. That says everything about who we really are." Again, silence. Then the man who'd sparked the argument simply turned on his heel and left, no apology, no retort. The employees seemed to breathe in unison, unsettled. Chase eyed them. "This dealership needs to change, starting now." A quiet voice broke the tension. "Mr. Turner?" It came from the far side near the service desk. A woman in her mid-twenties, hair in a neat bun, stepped forward. He recognized her vaguely, someone working in the back office, maybe. Her voice was gentle. "My name's Danica," she said. Chase gave a small nod. "Right, Danica." She swallowed. "I've been here almost a year. I've seen this stuff. I did try talking once to a manager, but he told me to mind my pay grade. So I did. Then I saw nothing changed." Chase's face was impassive, but his eyes softened. She glanced around at her coworkers. "I hoped someone up top would notice, but we all kept assuming someone else would say something." He exhaled. Then he strode toward her. "Thanks for speaking up now." "It needed to be said," Danica murmured. He turned to address the entire group. "I didn't come here to shame anybody, but I had to see for myself what goes on when I'm not around. This can't stay hidden under politeness and excuses." Looking at the receptionist, who stared downward, he asked, "You knew something wasn't right, didn't you?" She paused, then quietly, "Yes." "Why not speak up?" "I was afraid of losing my job." Chase nodded. "I get that. But when we stay silent, the problem grows. Then one day, we realize the place we built no longer matches what we believed in." He let that sink in. Accountability isn't just about pointing fingers. It's about working together to fix what's broken. A hush fell again. He walked back to the cluttered desk where the half-finished contract remained. He picked up a business card lying there, his own card that he'd dropped. Holding it up, he said, "This card doesn't mean I know everything. It just means I have some power. But what good is that if I won't use it to make this place better?" His gaze shifted to the fired salesman's abandoned desk. "I'm not just making an example out of one person. I'm changing how we operate, starting today." Turning to Danica, he asked, "You willing to help with that?" She hesitated, blinking. "Me? Yeah. You see what needs fixing. That means you're valuable. I want someone inside who'll speak up when things feel off. Can you do that?" Her voice wavered, but she said, "Yes. I can." Chase let out his first genuine smile of the day. "Good. Let's begin." Looking at everyone else, he raised his voice enough for them to hear. "We'll have a mandatory meeting tomorrow morning. We're rewriting some policies, and not just on paper. We're going to change how we treat every single customer who walks in." He let those words settle, then strode toward the glass doors. The blazing Texas sun nearly blinded him on his way out, but he welcomed it as he stepped into the heat. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcy. "Everything okay?" He tapped a short reply, "Not yet, but it will be." However, one final piece of business remained. He didn't climb back into the old Ford Ranger right away. Instead, he looked down the sidewalk, scanning left and right. He was searching for someone, and just when he thought it might be too late, he spotted him, that young man from before, the one in the worn hoodie. He was at a bus stop, folded paperwork still pressed to his side. Chase headed over. "Hey," he called. The young man turned, startled. Chase slowed, raising his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "Didn't mean to spook you. I saw you at the showroom earlier." The kid slipped out an earbud. "Yeah. You were waiting for help, but no one came." A brief nod. "Not the first time." Chase tilted his head. "What's your name?" "Jaden." "Jaden, I'm Chase Turner. I own that dealership across the street." Jaden arched his brow. "You serious?" "Dead serious." A soft chuckle escaped him, half in disbelief. "Man, I assumed you were just another dude getting the same cold shoulder." Chase gave a slight shrug. "I was." He stepped a bit closer, lowering his voice. "I dressed like this on purpose, so I could see how folks would treat me if they had no clue who I was. And what I saw in there. I can't allow it." Jaden studied him. "So, now what?" Chase pulled out his phone. "You still in the market for a truck?" Jaden nodded. "Yeah. Used, nothing fancy. I've been to at least 5 places in the last couple weeks. Same story everywhere." Chase sighed. "Come back with me, but not as a customer, come as my guest. I'll have Danica help you find a reliable ride in your price range. And this time, you'll get the respect you should have had in the first place." Jaden hesitated, eyes flicking between Chase and the dealership. "You don't gotta do that." Chase offered a gentle smile. "I want to." A beat passed. Then Jaden exhaled, nodding. "All right." They crossed the street together. This time, employees noticed. Some seemed embarrassed, but none hid. Danica was at the front, ready. She greeted Jaden kindly, the way it should have happened before. Chase stepped aside, letting them talk. This was the reason he got into business in the first place. Not just to sell vehicles, but to create a space that was honest and fair. Over time, the culture had drifted off course, but it wasn't too late to correct it. When Jaden was settled, and Danica was pulling up inventory on a computer, Chase finally headed out for real. He climbed into his old Ranger, started the engine, and let it idle. No cinematic soundtrack played in his head, just the motor humming and warm air flooding through the open window. He'd made a choice that day, not simply about a truck or a salesperson, but about the legacy he wanted to leave. Not just as a CEO, but as a man. A man who remembered exactly where he came from and wouldn't stand silent in the face of injustice. A man who understood what it was like to be overlooked. A man who, when push came to shove, wouldn't just talk change, he'd make sure it began in his own backyard. He shifted into drive and pulled away slowly, fading into the bright West Texas sunshine. Some folks earn their title from a diploma, others from time. But the ones who truly deserve it are those who never forget their roots and use every ounce of power they've got to lift someone else up. If this story resonated with you, feel free to share it, and don't forget to follow us for more stories that speak the truth, no matter how uneasy it might be.